What is up, and welcome back to another episode of So There's That. I'm your hostess, doing the absolute mostest, Kivanchi, and we are here with the season 2 finale of the Ark on SYFY. Burr, 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 burr. It is coming to an end, and I'm sad because I really love this show. I got to binge it and catch up on it really fast because obviously I was behind the times. But it's so good. It's such an amazing ensemble. It's a really nice story that feels old but also refreshing, and I just love that it finally feels like we're getting back to like the foundation of network television, not just with SYFY but with AMC, with ABC, with NBC, with CBS. It just really feels like we're going back to the old formulas and the things that work, the things that got syndication. And this is one of those shows that I'm just like, man, I hope you get to like Star Wars and Star Trek levels on television, especially on the SYFY network, because it's just good sci-fi. Like, I don't know, like a lot of people write sci-fi off because it's like, oh, it can't be real, but that's the thing, right? It's imagination genre, it's make-believe, it's literally like Barney on crack, and that's the beauty of it all. So I'm excited to be here today with the season 2 finale, episode 12, titled Fortunate to Have You, Girl. I'm sorry, that was just a Maxwell insert, but it is titled Fortunate. Okay, so we're just gonna deep dive into the episode. I'm gonna kind of this is more like a review, recap type of situation. We're not gonna go play by play because it's the finale and I want y'all to see it, but I want you to be inspired to see it. I want you to be driven to go see it. But yeah, before we get into the weeds of everything, obviously I'm gonna do my little spiel at the beginning. First and foremost, if you like my videos, go ahead and like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment in the comment box below. You can also follow me on Instagram at So There's That Podcast. And if you want to hear all of my inner thoughts and my inner workings, you can follow me on Twitter at Kivanchi. You can also follow me on Spotify, So There's That Podcast, as well as Apple Podcasts under the same name. I was highly encouraged to have a video element to this, and honestly, thank you to everyone who's been showing up and been subscribing and been commenting on all the things. I really appreciate it. I understand that a lot of you are visual creatures, so am I. So I'm just really happy to be building just a community with everybody who just likes TV or who even comes back to listen to me talk about a whole bunch of stuff every episode. So without further ado, let's get into the Ark season 2 finale, Fortunate. So y'all already know the genre is sci-fi, but it's like sci-fi genre. What am I talking about? Sci-fi drama. So season 2 overall felt more drama to me, like a very heavy drama element as we're getting into relationships, as we're getting into character backgrounds and people having children and people having ex-spouses and relationships across parents, friendships, working relationships, things of that nature, which is not a bad thing because it really grounds the series and it's able to connect to a new audience who maybe is kind of like, okay, there's a lot of sci-fi, but I want to feel and I want to cry and I want to have all the things. And so we're really getting heavy into that. I don't know that there's a mashup name like dramedy or like a rom-com, like a sci-medy, dram-sci, dram-fi, I don't know. But it's definitely like equal parts this season, especially leading into the finale. Again, it was created by Dean Devlin. The cast includes Christie Burke, who plays Captain Garnett, Reece Ritchie, who's Ian, Richard Fleeshman as Lieutenant Brice, Stacey Reed as Alicia, Ryan Adams as Angus, Pavle Jerinic as Strickland, Shalini Peiris as Dr. Sanji, Tiana Upcheva as Ava, Paul Leonard Murray as William Trust, Jaldran Malkovich as Dr. Murray, and Samantha Glassner as Kelly. So everything led up to the members of Ark One, led by Captain Sharon Garnett, getting to the planet Trappist 1D. And this was like the other planet other than, oh my god, I cannot even think of the other planet. And I was just here last week. Oh my god, what's the name of that planet? So they went to another planet that was supposed to be like Earth, and that was the first place that they were supposed to go. But like one half of the planet was like ice cold and the other half was hot. It ended up being like this whole catastrophe, and so then they had to divert their plans to get to Trappist 1D, and they're going there along with the EFA, which back on Earth they were seen as a terrorist group, but as we found out a couple of weeks ago, that it was just a real big government conspiracy to make the EFA look like a terrorist group, when really it was the GSA that was out here committing mass genocide just to take the people that they wanted to take into orbit 100 years later to basically live and repopulate a new planet. So we've gotten through Strickland being blackmailed in the last episode, and we figured out that the signal was coming from Trappist 1D. So we're opening it up with episode 12, and we're just trying to figure out like who could have want him dead. So obviously the first person that they think of is Maddox, which is Sarah's mom, and she's the one who basically turned Sarah into like a Frankenstein of a daughter, which is known as posthumans. Her and Garnett kind of came up with like this truce before, and then they went on their merry little ways, and Ark One ended up having like some other troubles and things before getting there. So they're just like, would she do this? Like, it seems like she would, because she really wanted William Trust dead, but why would she do this if she said that we're friends, and if she said that there would be no harm and there would be no fights or any wars between us anymore? So they're like, okay, we're gonna send a small crew down, just like a welcome crew, just to say like, hey, we're here. And they saw that there were 4 other arcs there, to include Arc 15, the one that Miss Maddox was on. Now, if you recall, Miss Maddox took over unceremoniously William Trust's company, and his technology and all of that is the reason the arcs are built. And she basically felt like she could do better, but she was like an evil genius. So where William Trust was arrogant, she was just evil. So they're like, okay, we'll go down. And Strickland's like, well, I'm going down too. Like, they have my daughter. And Garnett's like, listen, they think you're dead. They think William Trust is dead. We don't want to risk it. We'll go down, see what's up, see if we can vet anything. And Ava ended up putting something in their wristwatches and their communication devices that basically will alert them if they come across the signal that ended up taking over their ship in the last episode in the first place. So it'll basically like buzz if it connects it. So kind of like when your white blood cells, when you get sick, and then your white blood cells forms antibodies, and so the next time they get that virus or anything similar, they already know to arm up and fight. That's basically what she did in their wristwatches. So they go down, but if my daughter is missing and my husband is dead and you threaten me with my daughter, do you really think that Strickland is going to listen and stay on the ship? No. So he goes down and literally compromises everything. So Garnett, Reece, Ian, who else went? Those are the main 3 that I can remember, but it was basically a crew of like 5 or 6. But Strickland ended up sneaking into the shuttle that they used to land on the planet. So they're walking around and they're just talking to everybody, and they're just like, welcome, nice to meet you, we're so fortunate to be here, we're so happy to have you. And it seems like super pleasant, it seems very zen. But Strickland sneaks off and finds his daughter, and he's like, babe, like, it's me, like, it's your dad. And she's like, I don't know you. And he's like, no, like, it's me. And it ends up like alerting everybody else in the dining hall that was there. So she's like screaming, and then they jump in. Meanwhile, we go into the other side of things, and we're looking at Garnett, and she's talking to the person who greeted her, and we go to everyone else as well, and they're just walking around, and they're just like, oh, okay, well, you know, what happened to Miss Maddox? And they're like, Miss Maddox died in a tragic accident. So Ian and Lieutenant Brice are like, I wonder where we heard that. And yeah, because Strickland and William Trust was supposed to die in a tragic accident. So they move on, and the group is continuing to ask questions, and the people end up glitching, and they're like, Mrs. Maddox died in a tragic accident. She died in a tragic accident. She died in a tragic accident. And we have this get out moment where it's like something within them is triggered, and all the people on Trappist end up jumping everybody and just kind of like taking over them and doing whatever type of mind control on them. So while this was happening, Ian ended up breaking off and going to the engineering department, because obviously he wants to see like what's going on with the planet, how are things going, what's lifelines like, you know, how will the different colonies end up existing. And he's hearing this thing. Now mind you, he's a clone, so the way that he kind of approaches a lot of things, especially while being on another planet with the second generation clones, he's not like openly, like with open arms, trusting of anyone or anything. And so it's clicking that everybody's like, we're so fortunate to be here. We're so fortunate to be here. And he sees this woman kind of like banging her head in the hallway. We're fortunate to be here. We're fortunate to be here. We're fortunate to be here. And one of the security guards comes. And so he pretends to like be mindless like them. He doesn't know why they're mindless, but he pretends to do what they do. And then the security guard ended up going into this room, and when it opened, we saw Mrs. Maddox injecting this lady in the neck and like fixing her glitch. And so Ian is walking off, and he's trying to find everybody else that he got off the ship with to let them know like what was going on. So by the time he found them, they're all getting back into the shuttle to head back to Ark One to bring everybody on to let them know that it's okay. And as soon as he gets on there, he's like, y'all, we need to talk, like it's some weird shit going on. And they were like, what do you mean? Everything is great. We are so fortunate to be here, and we're gonna go back and we're gonna do everyone's intake exam and their medical examinations, and we're gonna vaccinate them so that they don't bring any unwanted diseases or any foreign like antigens or anything to the planet, so that we can all survive. So it's literally him and everybody else just kind of like under this spell thing that he doesn't know. So they go back. He hops on the ship, and he's fine. He goes to try to find Ava, but then Brice comes up, and that's her boo, that's her bae. And he's like, let's go to bed, bae, so that you can get seen. So they come back, and they got this small crew of people, but they come back with this giant box of medical supplies so that they can infect everyone with these mind control chips that was taken from Trappist. And Ian finally finds Alicia, and he finds Angus, and then they go to get William Trust, and he's like, there's some weird shit going on, and it looks like mind control. And Trust remembers the chip that they pulled from Dr. Murray's brain. And so he's like, it must be that Mrs. Maddox perfected what she messed up in William Trust's brain, and so she's putting it on like this nano level. So they're trying to figure out like how they're able to disable this inside of people's bodies. And so they're like, okay, if we inject like the brain of the person with like some nanites that we can use from Sarah, then we can get everybody else involved and get them collected, and it'll shut down the chip in everyone else. So they're working, and people are getting injected and infected left and right, till it boils down to Sarah getting her wristwatch to be able to control her own powers and her own post-human abilities. And they end up getting Garnett, and they shoot her with the nanites to get everything going. And then finally it clicks in, and then it shuts everybody else down. the beauty of this whole thing is that while they were under like possession, they were wholly aware of what's going on. So once Ark One was finally under control and everything was good to go, everybody remembered exactly what was happening. So they wanted to be able to do that same thing on a mass production scale back at Trappist, so that all the other arcs that ended up landing there could get their memories back. So they go back down and they seize the country. They seize everybody that was there so that they can get their memories back, and they're having communications. They're like, okay, what happened when everything got here? And when Miss Maddox got there on Arc 15, she had already basically mind chipped everybody on her own ship, and so she used all of them to come down and basically subdue all the 3 other arcs that they were there. And that was how she was able to mind control everybody. At this juncture, Miss Maddox is like, they know what I'm doing. So she's trying to jump ship, and she gets on one of the shuttles to leave. She gets on the shuttle and she's holding Strickland's daughter as hostage. So she calls back and she was like, if y'all follow me, I'm killing baby girl. Like, it is what it is. Lo and behold, Sarah is on the ship. Now, Sarah promised that the next time that she saw her mom, she was going to kill her. But she ended up having a change of heart, which she confided in Dr. Murphy in the last episode. And she's trying to change. She's trying to be kind, and she's trying to use her post-humanism for good. But her mom is trying to exploit her weaknesses and exploit the fact that they have this dysfunctional mother-daughter relationship. And so if she didn't want to kill her before, why would she kill her now? So they're having this conversation, and y'all know when evil people be trying to like have eye to eye while they're trying to like sneak and get a weapon or anything like that. And Sarah looks at her, and with tears from her eyes, she's like, you wanted to build a killing machine, and now you have one. And she snaps her mom's neck. And even though it was emotional, she knew that she needed to do what she needed to do for all of Arc One and the other arcs to be able to live in a peaceful environment without somebody trying to mind control and take over everybody like Mega Mind or some shit. So she calls back and she lets Garnett know, like, you know, how do I land this thing? Because she don't know how to fly a plane, okay? So they get back, everything is good, everybody's sharing information, and they're looking into kind of like building a council and building a democracy on Trappist. So everybody's like nominating leaders of the different factions to represent all the people. So get a clone, get somebody from Earth, get somebody from another planet. They haven't mentioned EFA at this juncture, which they didn't really have time. So at this moment, all we know is that the issues back at Earth were supposed to not come at Trappist, but we didn't really get a chance to get around to EFA and them being able to land as well and actually live peacefully without people having their memories and forming false opinions from all the propaganda that was done back at Earth. So we don't know that yet. But Garnett is very concerned about the other arcs that haven't gotten there yet. And she's like, you know what? I was made to be able to withstand a lot of things in space. So I'm not going to stay here, and I nominate Strickland. He's super unbiased and we can get people to say. So at this juncture, a lot of people are kind of like choosing whether or not they want to stay on Trappist or whether they want to go with Garnett back on the ship to find all the other arcs. This causes a rift in a lot of the relationships between Angus and Alicia, between Ava and Lieutenant Brice, Dr. Murray and Dr. Sanji. So loyalties and relationships budding and established are being tested as people are now figuring out their place and their purpose in life. So we go through the things, and people that stay, and the people that don't. I won't say who. Watch the episode. And Captain Garnett's sole mission right now is to help other people. They got stopped in space a bunch of different times, and so now they're more equipped and they know how to navigate a lot of the different obstacles that's in space. And so she feels her and her team are the best group to go out and get everybody else brought to Trappist safely. As she's going out, she ends up coming upon one of the other arcs, and she's trying to get comms there. So at first, nobody's really saying anything, and so there's an assumption that they're dead. But then over like crackly static networks, they're saying like, don't come here, it's a trap, turn around really fast. So they're getting like this mayday communications back on their team to like abort, 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 do not come for us, this shit is not safe for you. And then at the same time, we have one of the members out with the crew that's kind of like mining the land and building like a new like greenhouse, planting some crops and things of that nature, and they come across this thing that literally looks like the tablet of the 10 Commandments, and there's some stuff written in a language that nobody understands. And he asks, he's like, are you sure there were no signs of any other life on this planet when you got here? And they were like, we haven't come across anything, we've sent out comms, we have nothing. And they're like, you know, what does it say? And he says, I hope that it doesn't say no trespassing, because if it does, we're fucked. So there's that. The Ark season 2, episode 12, the season finale, Fortunate. Now, overall, I really love the series, and I'm super excited for season 3. There's so many ways for this to go. It's like astronomical, and again, like I said, I really see them lasting as long as Star Trek. I didn't watch Star Trek, but I know by the time I was born and like mentally capable of receiving the information that I was watching through television, Star Trek had been on for an extremely long time, not just through comics but through television, just through my parents, my grandparents, cousins, aunts, uncles, siblings. Well, not siblings, I'm the oldest, but y'all get the gist. So it was out for a really long time. So I definitely wish and pray for longevity for the season. Now, for this particular episode, there are some things that I did not like. Let me take a sip of Sable bourbon before I get into it, because I don't like when I like a show and then have to like critique it in like a constructive but like kind of way. Okay, we got to Trappist, things were good, mind control, so let's go there. I felt like we could have spent longer time. First off, the episode was 43 minutes, should have been 59 right after that. Add 16 more minutes. When we got to the mind control piece in the discovery that Mrs. Maddox was alive, it just was so fast that I didn't really get any satisfaction or any payoff from it. It's such a gag that Miss Maddox is the one that wanted William Trust dead. It's such a gag that she wanted Strickland to kill himself along the way, and that she perfected this mind control chip. But we never really got into the production of that. We didn't really go back to Dr. Murphy and really investigate and interrogate him on what she ultimately wanted to do with the chip that they removed from his brain. It was just like this other episode, oh, there was this mind control brain chip, but it failed, and now it's like, oh, she perfected the mind control thing and she infected all of her people on the ship and we took over all these other people. We saw like a brief, oh, Miss Maddox is alive, and then her daughter killed her. So I definitely think that we should have spent more time with everybody being possessed and more people being captured, and a lot of build up into what that would look like, to include maybe ending the season with the majority of them being mind controlled by Mrs. Maddox without her death, but then the few people that were able to avoid it kind of being like at the season finale cliffhanger, being like, what the fuck do we do now? But given the finale that we did get, I feel like we could have added 16 more minutes, if not 17 to 18, onto the show, so that we can really get into the mind control, really gag at the fact that Mrs. Maddox was alive, get into what were the data points and what was the mathematical equations that allowed her to be able to effectively implement this and gain control over multiple colonies. Then we could have gone through the hassle of all of that, the true discovery of why she wanted Trust dead still. And then we could have shortened the part where we found out that there may be other life on this planet. So given the things that we had, we could have elongated and elaborated on certain points. And Mrs. Maddox's death, because of how fast it happened, it wasn't even satisfying, like, at all. There wasn't really a lot of struggle and a lot of second guessing with Sarah. I would have loved to see a lot more of her battling with her humanity versus the killing machine that the mother raised in the first place. She ended up killing her and then kind of crying, but like there was no real internal struggle, no moral or ethical struggle within her in that moment. So Miss Maddox dying after only briefly finding out that she was alive was kind of like, it fell flat for me. And then we spent so long at the end, like digging in the earth, and we think we're finding something new, and then we come across this plate, and what is it? And we're dusting it off, and oh my God, there's other people here. We literally could have just elaborated on everything else, and then boom, cut to, we're digging, we hit something, we pull it up, and it's like, oh fuck, we're not the only ones here. And that could have been the end. So as a finale, I was disappointed. Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody just left me like a really nice review and comment in the comment section, and they said they were looking forward to this, and I'm so sorry. I think your name is Greg. I am so sorry, but I just had to be honest. I love this show and I love what I do, and I'm not gonna lie, for a TV show, nobody's paying me, so there's that. Hence the name of my show. But yeah, nobody's above feedback and nobody's above criticism. So let me take another sip. So it fell flat for me. It was too fast in a lot of places and too long in places that didn't really fucking matter. But overall, the setup for next season, we're finally no longer in space, kinda. So we get to be on TRAPPIST, and we get to figure out what's happening with this other Ark that's basically sending a Mayday transmission to say, turn y'all asses around because you're gonna die here. And we have potentially other life forms. So we have 3 things that we can explore literally across 2 more seasons. So hopefully they have the funding and they have the viewership to continue the show so that we can get renewed for a 3rd season. Because I'm really interested, like, okay, cool, we're not in space anymore. We're literally tangibly touching the ground. Our feet are on the ground. We get to live. There's a sense of relief, but then there's a sense of dread, doom, and trepidation as well, which is a great way to start off the season. So they have the potential to have a very explosive season 3 in space or on TRAPPIST or just infighting amongst the colonies, because the people on Ark One have lived a different experience than the other 4 Ark colonies that got there. They may not have gone through the trauma that Ark One has gone through, and Ark One is the one that we're following. So we don't really know. Maybe they'll have a situation where, like, when the 2nd generation clones try to take over Ark One's ship, we have no idea. But so far everybody seems to be like working towards the greater good and working towards civilization. So we don't know. We know at least we have 2 major plot points that we can explore in season 3. So other than that, I am looking forward to next season. I am gonna continue to watch, and maybe we can get some new writers. I think we could just dig deeper. And if SYFY can get more money to get more time, I think we can extend these episodes greater than 42 to 45 minutes to get like a good solid 12 episodes that's at least 48 minutes, because a show like this deserves that time, because it's sci-fi, because there's multiple moving parts, and the average person may not be able to follow it, especially if you're somebody who likes drama but like otherworldly things, but sci-fi is not necessarily your thing. If they can get more time per episode, you'll really bring in an entirely new audience. So that's just my take. Take it or leave it. It's unbiased and it's full of love. And on that note, I will catch y'all in my next episode, and I will absolutely see you next season of the Ark on SYFY. And you can catch up with all of the episodes on Peacock. Okay, catch up, rewatch it, tell a friend, and then tell that friend to tell a friend. And until next time.